take your things and get out of my house, Ethan, and I'm done carrying a man who brings nothing to the table.
She threw his suitcase into the driveway like it meant nothing. Shirt spilled across the pavement, neighbors slowed down, phones came out, and she didn't stop there. She called him broke. Useless. A mistake she should have fixed years ago. Her parents stood behind her watching. So did the man she had been seeing behind his back. What none of them noticed was the sound approaching from the end of the street. Low, controlled. 10 black SUVs turning the corner. Because the man she just kicked out wasn't poor. He was a secret billionaire husband. And this was the moment everything changed. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hours earlier, the house still looked like a marriage, not a breaking point. Ethan Carter stood in the kitchen rinsing his coffee mug, while the morning light cut across the counter. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. It hadn't been peaceful in months. Upstairs, he could hear drawers opening and closing. Lena was getting ready for work. Her movements were sharper these days. Faster. Like everything about this life irritated her. He dried the mug and set it down carefully. His truck keys rested beside it, old, scratched. The kind of thing people noticed before they noticed anything else about him. "Are you seriously taking that thing again?" Lena's voice came from the doorway. He didn't turn right away. He already knew the look on her face. When he did, she was standing there in a fitted blazer, her hair perfectly styled, phone in hand. She looked like someone who belonged somewhere else. "It runs fine," he said calmly. She let out a short laugh. Not amused, just tired. "Yeah, it runs fine. That's not the point, Ethan." He didn't ask what the point was. He already knew. The point was the image. The point was what her friends saw when they drove past their house and noticed the old truck parked outside. The point was what her co-workers said when they talked about their husbands and vacations and investments. The point was everything he never explained. Lena walked past him and grabbed her coffee, barely looking at him. "You know, Marvin offered to drive me today," she said casually. Ethan's hand paused for a second. Just a second. "Then why didn't you take it?" he asked. She shrugged like it didn't matter. But it did. "Because I didn't want to deal with the questions," she said. "Not today. Marvin." Ethan had heard the name enough times to understand what it meant. Not just a co-worker, not just a friend. Marvin was everything Ethan wasn't on the surface. New car, expensive suits, loud confidence, the kind of man who made sure people knew what he had. And lately, he had been around Lena more than Ethan was comfortable with. "She's under a lot of pressure," Lena's mother had said last week. "You should try to understand that." Her father had been less polite. "A man should provide," he'd said, staring directly at Ethan across the dinner table, "not just survive." Ethan hadn't argued. Not because he didn't have anything to say, but because he knew arguing wouldn't change what they believed. Lena checked her reflection in the window and adjusted her sleeve. "I have a dinner tonight," she said. "With the team." Ethan nodded. "Okay." She hesitated just for a moment. "Marvin will be there," she added. Of course he would. Ethan leaned back against the counter, studying her face. There was something different there now. Not guilt. Not exactly. Distance. Like she had already started stepping away from this life, even if she hadn't physically left yet. "You've been working late a lot," he said quietly. Her eyes flicked toward him, defensive. "It's called having ambition," she replied. "You should try it sometime." The words landed harder than they sounded, but Ethan didn't react. He just nodded once. "Drive safe," he said. For a second, she looked at him like she wanted a reaction. Anger, frustration, something. But he gave her nothing, and that seemed to irritate her more than anything else. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. "You know what, Ethan," she said, stopping halfway. "I'm tired of pretending everything is fine." He stayed where he was. "I never said it was," he replied. She turned to face him fully now. "No, you just act like none of this matters," she said. "Like it's okay to live like this forever, like what he asked." She gestured around the house. This small life, this average life. I didn't sign up for this." There it was. Not loud, not explosive, but clear. Ethan let the silence sit between them for a moment. He thought about the early days, when this house had felt like enough, when they had laughed over cheap takeout and talked about building something together, back when enough was actually enough. "Things change," she added softer now. "People grow." He met her eyes. "Or they forget what mattered," he said. Her expression hardened again. Maybe what mattered just wasn't enough. She walked out before he could answer. The front door closed with a quiet click. Ethan stood there for a long moment after she left. The house felt bigger when she was gone. Not in a good way. He glanced at his phone on the counter. A message sat unread. Just one line. "Board meeting moved up. Confirm arrival." He didn't open it, didn't respond. He just flipped the phone over and walked toward the sink again. Because right now, none of that mattered. Not compared to what was happening here. Not compared to what was coming. And somewhere across town, Lena was already stepping into a different version of her life, one that didn't include him, one that included someone else. And later that night, sitting across from Marvin in a crowded restaurant, she would finally say the words that would change everything. "I've made up my mind." The restaurant was louder than usual that night, but Lena barely noticed. The soft hum of conversations, the clinking glasses, the laughter from nearby tables, it all faded into the background. Her attention stayed locked on the man sitting across from her. Marvin leaned back in his chair like he owned the space. His suit was perfectly tailored, his watch just visible enough to be noticed. Everything about him felt intentional, polished, easy. "Long day," he asked, swirling the drink in his glass. Lena nodded, forcing a small smile. "Something like that." He studied her for a moment, then leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said. "I can see it on your face." She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "It's just everything feels stuck," she admitted. "Like I'm moving forward and my life isn't." Marvin didn't interrupt. He just listened. That was part of it too. He always seemed to know when to speak and when to stay quiet. "And Ethan?" he asked after a pause. Her jaw tightened at the name. "He doesn't get it," she said. "He doesn't even try to get it. He's just comfortable. Like this is enough." "And it's not enough for you," Marvin said calmly. She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "It's not." The words settled between them heavier than she expected. Saying it out loud made it real. Marvin nodded slowly as if he had been waiting for her to admit that. "You deserve more than just enough, Lena," he said. "You work too hard for that." His tone wasn't pushy. It was steady, certain. That certainty was what pulled her in. Across the table, he reached for his glass again, but his eyes never left her. "I see the way people look at you at work," he added. "You could be running that place in a few years if you wanted to. But instead you go home to what? A guy who won't even upgrade his truck." It was a small comment, almost casual, but it landed exactly where it needed to. Lena looked down at her hands. "It's not just the truck," she said. "It's everything. He disappears on these random trips, won't tell me where he's going. Doesn't talk about money. Doesn't talk about anything important. Because there's nothing to talk about," Marvin said simply. She didn't respond. Part of her knew that wasn't true. Ethan wasn't careless. He wasn't lazy. He paid the bills. He showed up when it mattered. But he never explained himself. And lately, that silence felt less like mystery and more like a limitation. Marvin leaned back again. "You know what I think," he said. She looked up. "I think you've already outgrown him." The words hit harder than she expected. Outgrown him. It sounded harsh, final, but it also felt accurate. At the same time, in a quiet part of her mind, something pushed back. A memory. Ethan fixing something around the house late at night. Ethan showing up when her car broke down without being asked. Ethan remembering things no one else did. Small things. Things that didn't look like success, but still meant something. She pushed the thought away. "That's not fair," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it?" Marvin asked gently. "Look around, Lena." She did. The restaurant was filled with people like him, people who looked like they were going somewhere, people who had already arrived. Then she thought about Ethan's worn jeans, his quiet routines, his refusal to explain where he went on those trips. The contrast felt sharper now, uncomfortable. "I don't want to wake up 5 years from now and feel like I wasted my life," she said quietly. Marvin nodded like he understood that fear perfectly. "You won't," he said. "Not if you make the right choices now." The waiter came by to refill their glasses. Neither of them spoke until he left. Then Marvin leaned forward again, his voice lower. "You know you don't have to stay in something that's holding you back," he said. There it was, not said outright, but clear enough. Lena felt her chest tighten. She wasn't just talking about frustration anymore. This was a decision, a real one, and for the first time she didn't feel guilty for thinking about it. Back at the house, Ethan sat alone in the living room. The lights were off. Only the faint glow from the street outside came through the window. His phone buzzed once on the coffee table. He didn't reach for it right away. He already knew what it was. Another message, another update, another reminder that a part of his life existed far beyond this house. After a few seconds, he picked it up. "Board confirmed. Tomorrow morning. Attendance required in person." He stared at the screen for a moment, then locked the phone and set it back down. His gaze drifted toward the empty hallway. The silence didn't bother him. What bothered him was what it meant. Things weren't breaking suddenly. They had been breaking for a while. Tonight was just the first time it was becoming visible. Across town, Lena sat back in her chair and looked at Marvin. The decision had already started forming before she even realized it. She took a breath. "I've made up my mind," she said. And somewhere inside her, something shifted. Something that wouldn't go back to the way it was. The next morning didn't start with shouting. It started with silence. Ethan woke up before the alarm as usual. The house felt different. Not empty, not yet, but thinner somehow, like something had already been taken out of it even before anything physically moved. He sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, listening. No footsteps, no drawers opening, no soft hum of Lena getting ready. She wasn't there. His eyes drifted to the nightstand. Her side was clean. No phone charger, no jewelry, just space. He stood up slowly and walked downstairs. The kitchen looked the same, but the feeling wasn't. The mug he had washed the night before was still on the counter. His keys were still in the same place, but Lena's coffee cup was gone. So was her bag. He didn't check his phone right away. He didn't need to. He already knew what he would find. When he finally picked it up, there was one message from her. "I'll be at my parents' place. We need to talk tonight." That was it. No explanation, no apology, just distance. Ethan stared at the screen for a few seconds, then locked it and set it back down. His expression didn't change much, but something behind his eyes did. It wasn't surprise. It was confirmation. Hours later, the house was no longer quiet. Voices filled the living room, loud, sharp, familiar. Lena stood near the front door, arms crossed, her posture rigid. Her parents were behind her, already settled in like they belonged there. And Marvin stood off to the side, leaning casually against the wall, watching everything unfold like he had a front row seat. Ethan walked in from the kitchen, his steps steady. No one greeted him. No one needed to. "We're not dragging this out," Lena said immediately. I don't want another week of pretending. Ethan stopped a few feet away from her. I'm not pretending, he said. Her father let out a dry laugh. Then what do you call this? He asked, gesturing around the house. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a man who wasted his wife's time. Ethan didn't respond to him. He kept his eyes on Lena. What do you want to say? He asked. She hesitated for a second, then straightened. I want a divorce, she said. The word landed clean. No hesitation, no softness, just a decision. Ethan nodded once. Okay, he said. That was it. No argument, no raised voice. And somehow that made everything worse. Lena's expression tightened. That's it, she asked. You're not even going to fight for this. I'm not going to force you to stay, he replied. Her mother stepped forward, shaking her head. Unbelievable, she said. No emotion, no urgency. This is exactly the problem, Ethan. You don't care enough. He glanced at her briefly, then back at Lena. I care, he said quietly. I just don't perform it. Marvin shifted slightly, a faint smile on his face. Well, that's convenient, he muttered. Ethan didn't acknowledge him. Lena let out a frustrated breath and reached into her bag. She pulled out a folder and placed it on the table between them. Papers are already drafted, she said. It's straightforward. No complications. Ethan looked at the folder, but didn't touch it. You've been planning this, he said. It wasn't a question. Lena didn't deny it. I've been thinking about it for a while, she replied. I just finally decided to stop ignoring it. Her father crossed his arms, nodding in approval. Good, he said. About time. The room felt smaller now, heavier. Ethan reached for the folder and opened it slowly. His eyes moved across the pages, calm, focused. No reaction. That calmness unsettled Lena more than anything else. You're not even going to read it properly, she asked. I am, he said. I just don't need to rush. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course you don't. You never rush anything. You never push for more. You just exist. The words stung more than she probably realized. But Ethan didn't show it. Marvin stepped closer, now his presence more obvious. You know, he said, looking at Ethan, sometimes letting go is the best thing you can do, for both of you. Ethan finally looked at him. Really looked at him. There was no anger in his eyes. Just a quiet, measured awareness. Sometimes Ethan said people don't understand what they're letting go of. Marvin held his gaze for a moment, then shrugged. Or maybe they understand exactly what they're leaving behind. Lena stepped in before it could go further. Enough, she said. I didn't bring you here for this. She turned back to Ethan. I'm done living like this, she said. I'm done explaining to people why my husband doesn't have anything to show for himself. There it was again. Not just frustration, embarrassment. He closed the folder and set it down. You're embarrassed of me, he said. She didn't hesitate. Yes, she said. The word hung in the air, heavy, honest, and final. Ethan nodded slowly. Not an agreement, an acceptance. Her mother moved closer, her tone sharper now. She's been patient, Ethan, but patience has limits. A woman shouldn't have to settle for less when she has options. Marvin didn't say anything this time. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. Lena took a step forward, her voice steadier now. I deserve someone who can actually provide. I deserve someone who can actually provide. The sentence didn't echo. It settled, heavy, final. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Not shocked, not angry, just still. Then he gave a small nod. Then you should be with someone like that, he said. Lena blinked, thrown off by how easily he said it. No resistance, no desperation. It made her chest tighten in a way she didn't expect. Her father scoffed. Finally some sense. Marvin let out a quiet breath, stepping forward slightly more confident now. I'll take care of her, he said casually. She won't have to worry about anything. Ethan's eyes shifted to him again. That same calm look. Measured. Almost like he was memorizing something. I'm sure you will, Ethan replied. Lena turned back to the table, pushing the folder closer to him. Just sign it, she said. We don't need to drag this out. Ethan placed his hand on the papers but didn't open them again. Not today, he said. Her expression hardened instantly. What do you mean, not today? I mean, I'll have my lawyer review it, he said calmly. The room shifted. Her father's face darkened. Lawyer, he repeated. What lawyer? Ethan didn't answer immediately. I have one, he said. Simple, direct. But something about the way he said it didn't sit right with them. Lena frowned. Since when? For a while, he replied. Her mother crossed her arms, suspicious now. For what exactly? You don't have assets to protect. That one landed harder than anything else. And still Ethan didn't react. I'll send you my attorney's information, he said to Lena. They'll coordinate. Marvin chuckled under his breath. Seems like overkill, he said. It's a clean split. There's nothing to fight over. Ethan looked at him again. You'd be surprised what's worth protecting, he said quietly. The air grew tense. Lena exhaled sharply. This isn't complicated, Ethan. We don't own anything significant together. There's no reason to make this messy. He nodded slowly. Then it won't be, he said. But there was something in his tone now. Something that didn't match the words. Lena felt it. And for the first time, a small, uncomfortable doubt flickered in the back of her mind. She pushed it down quickly. This is exactly what I mean, she said, her voice rising again. You always avoid things. You never step up, even now. Ethan didn't argue. He just picked up the folder and closed it carefully. I'll move out tonight, he said. The words landed differently. Not defensive. Not defeated. Decided. Lena froze for half a second. You don't have to rush, she said almost instinctively. But it came out wrong. Too late. Too soft. Ethan shook his head slightly. It's better this way. Her father nodded in approval. Good. Clean break. Marvin stepped closer to Lena, his hand resting lightly on her back now. Familiar, comfortable, claiming. Ethan noticed. He didn't react. But he noticed everything. I'll come by tomorrow for the rest of my things, he added. Lena nodded, though something in her chest felt tight again. Fine. There was a pause. An odd one? Like something should have been said, but neither of them knew what it was anymore. Then Ethan turned and walked toward the stairs. No hesitation. No looking back. Upstairs, the bedroom felt smaller than ever. He opened the closet and stared at it for a moment. Half his life hung there. Quiet, ordinary, carefully chosen to look like it meant nothing. He reached for a small suitcase and set it on the bed. He didn't rush. Folded shirts, a few pairs of pants, essentials, nothing more. No anger in the way he packed, no panic, just precision. Like he had already accepted this long before today. His phone buzzed once on the nightstand. He didn't look at it right away. He finished folding a shirt, placed it neatly into the suitcase, then picked up the phone. One message. Everything is prepared. Waiting for your instruction. No name. No signature. He stared at it for a few seconds, then typed back. Not yet. He set the phone down again. Downstairs, voices continued. Lena's mother talking about fresh starts, her father discussing better opportunities, Marvin laughing softly, already settling into a future that wasn't his yet. Ethan closed the suitcase, zipped it. He looked around the room one last time. Not for memories, for clarity. Then he picked up his bag and walked back downstairs. They all turned to look at him. Different expressions, approval, relief, indifference. Lena's eyes lingered on him a second longer than the others. You're really leaving like this? She asked. He nodded. Yes? She hesitated. Where are you going? A simple question, but something about it felt late. Ethan adjusted his grip on the suitcase. I have somewhere to be, he said. Not cold, not warm, just closed. Marvin smirked slightly. Hope it works out for you. Ethan met his gaze. It will. There was no arrogance in his voice, which somehow made it feel more certain. He walked to the door, opened it, paused for half a second. Not to look back, just to breathe. Then he stepped outside and closed the door behind him. The sound echoed softly through the house. Inside, Lena exhaled slowly, like she had been holding her breath without realizing it. That's done, her father said. Yes, she replied, but her voice didn't sound convinced. Outside, Ethan walked down the driveway without rushing. The evening air was cool, quiet, different. He reached the end of the street and stopped. For the first time since the conversation began, his expression shifted, just slightly. His phone rang. He answered immediately. Yes. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. The board is asking for confirmation, the man said. They've delayed the announcement as requested. But the gala is in 2 days. We need your final decision. Ethan looked up at the darkening sky. Lights from distant buildings flickered on. Steady, controlled. I'll be there, he said. A pause. Understood, sir. The line went dead. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. Across the street, a black sedan pulled up. Plain. Unremarkable. The driver stepped out and opened the back door without a word. Ethan didn't hesitate. He walked toward it, placed his suitcase inside, and got in. The door closed softly behind him. As the car pulled away, the small house disappeared in the rearview mirror. Inside, Lena stood by the window without realizing she had moved there. Watching nothing. Feeling something she couldn't name. 2 days. She thought she had made the right choice. She didn't know she had just walked away from the only man in that entire room who actually owned everything she was about to celebrate. And in 48 hours, she would find out. The next morning felt too quiet. Lena woke up later than usual, the house still holding the echo of yesterday's tension. For a moment, she forgot what had happened. Then she turned her head and saw the empty side of the bed. No phone on the nightstand, no folded shirt, no quiet presence moving around the kitchen. Just space. She sat up slowly, pressing her fingers against her temple, as if she could push the memory back out. Downstairs, her parents were already talking. Their voices carried easily through the house. He left clean, her father said. Good. No drama. He had nothing to fight for anyway, her mother replied. Better this way. Lena stood at the top of the stairs, listening longer than she should have. Something about the way they said it made it feel final in a way she hadn't fully processed yet. She walked down, forcing herself into a normal rhythm. Coffee, phone, emails, control. You have that gala tonight, her mother reminded her. Don't let yesterday ruin it. Lena nodded. I won't. But as she picked up her phone, a notification caught her eye. Company-wide announcement, executive leadership attending. She tapped it open. The message was short, formal. The CEO will be present in person. Her brows pulled together slightly. That's unusual, she muttered. Her father glanced over. Why he never shows up to these things, Lena said. Not in person. Her father shrugged. Even better. More visibility. Marvin, sitting at the table, now leaned back in his chair. Good timing, he said with a grin. You're about to get promoted in front of the top level. Lena smiled faintly. That should have excited her. It usually would. But something about the message stayed with her. A small, persistent feeling she couldn't explain. Later that afternoon, she stood in front of the mirror adjusting her dress. Dark blue. Clean lines. Elegant without trying too hard. She looked exactly like the version of herself she had been building toward. Successful, polished, untouchable. Her mother stood behind her, smiling proudly. This is your world, she said. Not that small life you almost got stuck in. Lena nodded slowly, but her eyes drifted for just a second, to the empty chair in the corner, where Ethan used to sit sometimes, watching her get ready, saying almost nothing. Just there. She turned away quickly. "Let's go," she said. The hotel ballroom was already glowing when they arrived. Chandeliers, soft music, conversations layered over each other. Everything felt important. Lena stepped inside like she belonged there. And she did. People greeted her immediately. Compliments, hugs, quick conversations about performance reviews and rumors of promotions. Marvin stayed close, his hand resting lightly at her waist. Visible. Intentional. Her father shook hands with a few senior managers already positioning himself in conversations that mattered. Everything was moving exactly the way it was supposed to. Then Lena noticed something. Security. More than usual. Men in dark suits positioned near the entrances, speaking quietly into earpieces. Her eyes lingered on them. "That's new," she said under her breath. Marvin followed her gaze. Probably for the CEO. She nodded. Still watching. A few minutes later, one of her co-workers leaned in. "You heard right," the woman whispered. "He's actually coming." "Yeah," Lena said. "I saw the email." "No, I mean actually coming. Like big arrival. People are saying it's not just him. It's something else." Lena frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The woman shook her head. "I don't know. Just what I heard." The music shifted slightly as more guests filled the room. Energy building. Expectation rising. Lena tried to focus on conversations, but her attention kept drifting. To the entrance. To the security. To that quiet tension in the air that didn't match a normal corporate event. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then opened it. One message. "Please be on time tonight." No name, no context. Her chest tightened slightly. "That's weird," she murmured. "What is?" Marvin asked. Nothing, she said quickly, locking the screen. But her mind didn't let it go. Across the room, the host stepped onto the stage, tapping the microphone lightly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, smiling, "we're about to begin." The room softened into attention. Conversations faded. Lena straightened slightly, instinctively preparing herself. This was her moment. Everything she had worked for. Everything she chose. The host continued. "Tonight we celebrate growth, success, and the people who make this company what it is. Applause. Polite. Controlled. And we are especially honored." He paused, slightly glancing toward the entrance to welcome someone who rarely appears in person. The room shifted. Subtle but real. Lena felt it. That same strange pull in her chest from earlier. Then the doors at the far end of the ballroom opened. Not quietly, deliberately. Security moved first. Two lines forming. People turned. Heads shifting one by one until the entire room was facing the entrance. Silence spread. Not planned. Not announced. Just happening. Lena's breath slowed without her realizing it. Her eyes locked on the doorway. Something was coming. Something big. And for the first time since she signed those papers, a thought slipped through her mind, uninvited, unwelcome, impossible to ignore. What if she had misjudged something? The footsteps started, slow, measured. And with each step closer, the balance of everything she thought she understood began to shift. The first person stepped through the doorway, and the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Then another, then more. Dark suits, earpieces, quiet, controlled movement. They didn't rush. They didn't look around. They simply took their positions, forming a clear path from the entrance into the center of the ballroom. Lena felt her fingers tighten around the edge of her clutch. "This is a bit much," she whispered. Marvin let out a low chuckle. Big companies love their show. But his voice wasn't as relaxed as before. Something about the atmosphere had shifted. This didn't feel like a show. It felt like preparation. The host stepped slightly aside, his posture changing more respectful now. "Please," he said, gesturing towards the entrance. And then he walked in. At first, Lena didn't recognize him, not because his face was unfamiliar, but because it didn't match the setting. Ethan. He wasn't wearing the worn jeans she had seen that morning. He wasn't standing quietly in the background. He walked forward in a perfectly tailored dark suit, his posture straight, his expression calm. Not stiff, not forced, just natural, like this world belonged to him, like it always had. Lena's breath caught. For a second, her mind refused to process what she was seeing. "That's," she started. Marvin leaned forward slightly, squinting. "No way," he muttered. Ethan didn't look around the room the way most people would. He didn't scan faces for approval. He didn't react to the attention. He simply walked, and everyone moved for him. Not out of confusion, out of recognition, respect, the kind that wasn't questioned. Lena's heart began to pound hard enough that she could feel it in her throat. "This doesn't make sense," she whispered. No one answered her, because no one needed to. Ethan reached the center of the room and stopped. One of the men beside him stepped forward, handing him a tablet. He took it without hesitation, glanced at the screen, then handed it back. Small, efficient, familiar. The host cleared his throat again, his tone now noticeably different. "It is my honor," he said, "to introduce the man behind the vision of this company." A pause. Long enough for the room to lean in. Our chairman and controlling shareholder, Mr. Ethan Carter. The words didn't explode. They sank. Deep, heavy, final. Lena felt like the ground had shifted under her feet. "No," she whispered under her breath. Marvin straightened beside her, his face tightening. "That's not possible," he said, quieter now. But no one else looked confused. No one questioned it, because to them it was already known. Applause filled the room, not loud at first, then growing, respectful, certain. Lena didn't clap. She couldn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on Ethan as he stepped forward toward the stage. Her Ethan. The man she had just told wasn't enough. The man she had just thrown away. The man she had been embarrassed to stand next to. And now, everyone in this room was standing for him. Ethan reached the microphone and paused for a moment. He didn't rush to speak. He didn't acknowledge the crowd with a big gesture. He simply stood there, still, grounded. Then he spoke. "Thank you for being here." His voice was the same, calm, measured. But now it carried differently, stronger. He didn't look at Lena. Not once. He spoke about the company. Growth. Direction. Responsibility. Nothing flashy. Nothing exaggerated. But every word landed. Because it came from someone who didn't need to prove anything. Lena's mind raced. Every moment from the past few months replayed in fragments. The truck, the silence, the trips he never explained, the calm, the way he never defended himself. It wasn't weakness, it was restraint. And she had mistaken it for nothing. Her stomach twisted. Beside her, Marvin had gone completely still. The confidence was gone now, replaced by something else. Calculation. Distance. When Ethan finished speaking, the applause came faster this time, louder. But he didn't stay on stage. He stepped down almost immediately, handing the microphone back without ceremony. As he walked through the crowd, people moved toward him. Executives, investors, people Lena had only seen from a distance, all of them waiting for a moment of his time. Lena couldn't breathe properly. This doesn't change anything," she said suddenly, her voice unsteady. But it sounded hollow, even to her. Her father stepped closer, his face pale. "You knew?" he asked her. She shook her head quickly. "No, I didn't. Her words fell apart, because there was no explanation that made sense anymore. Marvin took a step back, then another, subtle, but clear. Lena noticed. Of course she did. You said you'd take care of me, she said, turning toward him. He didn't meet her eyes. This is complicated, he muttered. Complicated. That was the word he chose. Not commitment, not certainty. Just distance. The same distance Ethan had shown, but this time it felt very different. Across the room, Ethan paused for a brief moment, just long enough to glance in their direction. Not directly at Lena, but close enough. His expression didn't change. No anger, no satisfaction, no revenge, just clarity. And then he kept walking, like they weren't part of his world anymore. Lena felt something inside her break. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Because in that moment she understood something she hadn't before. It wasn't that she had chosen the wrong man. It was that she had never truly seen the right one. And now it was too late. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She looked down. A notification. Breaking Chairman Ethan Carter makes rare public appearance. Her fingers trembled slightly. Around her, whispers started to spread. People connecting dots. People remembering. People watching her. The shift had begun, and there was no way to stop it. Because the same crowd that had just applauded Ethan was now starting to look at her differently. The whispers didn't stop. They spread. Quiet at first, then sharper, then impossible to ignore. Lena could feel it without needing to hear every word. The shift in the room was obvious. People weren't just looking at Ethan anymore. They were looking at her, at Marvin, at the space between them. Her phone buzzed again, and this time she didn't hesitate. She opened it. A message from a co-worker. Isn't that your husband? Her fingers froze. Another message came in seconds later. I thought you said he worked something small. Her throat tightened. She didn't respond. She couldn't. Across the room, Ethan continued moving through conversations with quiet control. No rush, no need to impress. People adjusted themselves around him, not the other way around. It was the same man, the same voice, the same calm presence. But now everything about him had context. And that context was crushing. Lena turned to Marvin, her voice lower now. Say something, she said. He didn't look at her. There's nothing to say, he replied. The answer came too quickly, too easily. She stared at him, disbelief rising. You said you'd take care of me, she pressed. Marvin exhaled, running a hand through his hair. That was before this, he said quietly. Before this. The words landed harder than anything else that night. Because now it was clear. His confidence had never been about her. It had been about comparison. And now that comparison was gone. So was he. Lena felt her chest tighten again. Not just from embarrassment, from something deeper. Realization. Her father stepped closer, his voice strained. You need to fix this, he said. Go talk to him. Lena shook her head instinctively. I can't just walk up to him like nothing happened. Her mother leaned in, more urgent. You don't have a choice. Do you understand what this means? Everything we thought, everything we said. She stopped herself. Too late. They all knew, the room knew, and Ethan hadn't said a single word about it. That was the worst part. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than anything they had said about him. Lena looked across the room again. This time she didn't see the man she had been frustrated with. She saw someone she had never actually understood. Someone who had chosen not to explain himself. Someone who had let her believe he was less. And now everyone else saw him for exactly what he was. Except her. She swallowed hard. I'll talk to him, she said. But her voice didn't sound certain. It sounded like someone trying to hold on to something already slipping away. She started walking. Each step felt heavier than the last. People moved out of her way, but not like they had for Ethan. Their eyes lingered, judging, curious. Some of them already knew the story, or thought they did. By the time she reached him, her hands were cold. Ethan was speaking with two older men in suits. Investors, maybe. Board members. They nodded as she approached, then stepped back without being asked. Respect. Again. Ethan turned slightly. Their eyes met. And for a moment, everything else faded. No crowd. No whispers. Just them. Lena opened her mouth, but nothing came out at first. She had imagined this moment differently. Easier. Controlled. Instead, it felt like standing in front of a mirror she didn't recognize. "I didn't know," she said finally. The words sounded small. Ethan didn't react immediately. He studied her for a second. Not harshly, not kindly, just clearly. "I know," he said, that was it. No accusation, no anger, just truth. It should have been a relief. Instead, it made her feel worse. "You could have told me," she said, her voice tightening. "You could have explained, I could have—" He interrupted gently. Not sharp, not defensive, just certain. "And you could have asked." The sentence landed quietly, but it cut deeper than anything else. Lena felt her breath catch. Because he was right. She hadn't asked. Not really. She had assumed, judged, compared, and then decided. "I thought," she started, then stopped. Because what had she thought? That he wasn't enough, that he wasn't going anywhere, that he needed to prove himself. Ethan waited, not impatient, just giving her space to say what she needed to say. But she didn't have the words anymore, not ones that made sense. "I made a mistake," she said finally. There it was, simple, honest, late. Ethan's expression didn't change. "I think you made a choice," he replied. The distinction mattered, more than she wanted it to. Behind her, she could feel people watching, listening. The moment was no longer private, and that made everything sharper, more exposed. "I didn't understand what I had," she said, her voice softer now. Ethan nodded slightly. "That's true," he said. "No comfort, no reassurance, just agreement." Lena's chest tightened again. She took a step closer, lowering her voice. "Is there any way to fix this?" The question hung between them, fragile, desperate, real. For the first time all night, Ethan's gaze shifted slightly. Not away, just inward, like he was considering something. Not emotionally, logically, carefully. Then he looked back at her. And the answer was already there, before he even spoke. And Lena felt it, the weight of it, the finality of it, before the words even came out. No, he didn't say it loudly. He didn't say it with anger, but it was clear, final. Lena felt the word hit her before she could react to it. It wasn't the rejection that hurt the most. It was how certain he sounded, like this decision had already been made long before she asked the question. She swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. "Ethan." She started, her voice softer, now stripped of everything it had been earlier. "We were together for years. That has to mean something." "It does," he said. For a brief second, hope flickered. Then he continued. "It means I know exactly what we had, and what we didn't." The hope disappeared just as quickly. Lena's fingers tightened around her clutch. "I was wrong," she said, forcing the words out. "I didn't see things clearly. I let everything else get in the way." Ethan watched her quietly, not dismissing her, but not stepping toward her either. "You didn't trust what was right in front of you," he said. His tone wasn't accusing, it was observational, and that made it harder to fight. Behind her, she could feel the weight of the room again, people pretending not to listen, people pretending not to watch. Her father shifted uncomfortably a few feet away, his confidence from earlier completely gone. Marvin wasn't even close anymore. Lena glanced over her shoulder instinctively. He had moved, not far, but far enough. Talking to someone else now, avoiding eye contact, blending back into the crowd like he had never been part of this moment. That hurt more than she expected. She turned back to Ethan, her voice lower. "I thought I needed more," she said. "I thought I needed security. Stability." Ethan gave a small nod. "You did," he said. The answer surprised her. She blinked. "Then why but you defined it the wrong way?" he added. That stopped her, completely. For a moment she didn't have anything to say, because deep down she knew it was true. She had measured security by appearances, by status, by what people could see, not by what actually lasted. "I didn't want to feel small," she admitted quietly. Ethan's expression softened. Just slightly. "You weren't small," he said. "You just believed you were." The words landed gently, but they carried weight. Lena felt something tighten in her chest again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was something closer to regret, real regret. "I can change," she said quickly. "I can do better. I didn't understand before, but I do now." Ethan held her gaze. Steady, calm. "You understand now because you saw something," he said. "Not because you felt something. That cut deeper than anything else, because she couldn't argue with it. If she hadn't seen him walk through that door, if she hadn't heard the room stand for him, would she be standing here?" She didn't answer, because she didn't know how to lie anymore. Ethan glanced past her for a moment, then back. "I'm not interested in being understood after the fact," he said. Lena's throat tightened. "Then what do you want?" she asked. It wasn't a challenge. It was a genuine question. For the first time, she wasn't trying to control the situation. She was trying to understand it. Ethan took a slow breath. "I want to be with someone who doesn't need proof to show respect," he said. The sentence settled quietly between them. No drama, no raised voice, just truth. Lena felt her eyes sting, but she didn't let herself break. Not here, not like this. "I respected you," she said weakly. Ethan didn't argue. He didn't need to. They both knew that wasn't entirely true. Respect didn't sound like embarrassment. It didn't look like comparison. It didn't lead to throwing someone away. "I'm not trying to hurt you," he said. "I know," she replied quickly. And she did. That was the part that made it harder. If he had been cruel, she could have defended herself. If he had been angry, she could have pushed back. But he wasn't. He was calm, clear, done. "I'll have my attorney reach out," he added. "We'll keep everything straightforward." The word attorney landed differently now. He hadn't been bluffing, not even close. Lena nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. It was the only thing she could say, because anything else would have sounded like denial, and she had already lost that ground. There was a pause. Not uncomfortable, just complete, like something had fully ended. Ethan gave a small nod, then stepped past her. No hesitation, no second look, just forward. Lena stood there, unmoving, watching him walk away again. But this time it felt different, because now she understood exactly who she was losing, and exactly why. Behind her, her father finally spoke. "We can fix this," he said quickly, almost desperate. "We just need to—" "No," Lena said softly. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. "We can't." Her mother stepped closer. "Lena." "It's done," she said. Not bitter, not angry, just aware. Across the room, Ethan was already surrounded again. Conversations resumed. Laughter returned. The world kept moving, like it always did. But for Lena, something had shifted permanently. Not just her relationship, her understanding, her choices, her reflection. Her phone buzzed again in her hand. Another message. From HR. "We need to speak with you tomorrow regarding your role." Her stomach dropped. Not fear, recognition. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was spreading. The consequences had started. And this time there was no one left to stand beside her. Years passed quietly. Not in headlines, not in dramatic turns, just steady change. Ethan built his company the way he had always done things. Calm, precise, focused. The kind of growth that didn't need noise to prove itself. Offices expanded. New partnerships formed. His name became more familiar, but he never leaned into it. He didn't need to. People respected him because of what he built, not because he demanded it. He kept his life simple. Not the same as before, but still grounded. Different house, different routines, but the same sense of control. The same quiet dignity. Lena's life didn't fall apart overnight. It shifted. The investigation at work didn't destroy her career, but it slowed it. Promotions stopped. Opportunities became careful. People were polite, but distant. The story from that night never fully disappeared. It followed her quietly in conversations that ended too quickly when she walked into the room. Marvin was gone within months. Transferred first, then removed entirely. No explanation given. Just absence. At first, Lena blamed everything around her. Timing, circumstances, bad luck. But over time, something changed. Not suddenly. Slowly. She stopped comparing. Stopped chasing the version of success that had once felt so urgent. She worked. She rebuilt. She learned how to stand without leaning on someone else's status. It took years, but it happened. The first time she saw Ethan again was at another event. Different hotel, different crowd, same kind of room. She noticed him before anyone announced his presence this time. Not because of security, but because of the way people moved around him. She stood still for a moment, watching. He looked the same, maybe a little older, a little more defined, but still steady, still himself. For a second, she thought about walking away, but she didn't. Instead, she walked toward him. Not rushed, not hesitant, just ready. He saw her before she spoke. Of course he did. There was a brief pause as the people around him stepped aside again. Not dramatically, just naturally. Respect hadn't changed, neither had his presence. "Hi," she said. Her voice was calm. Not fragile like before, not defensive, just honest. Ethan nodded slightly. "Hi." No tension, no awkwardness. Just two people who understood what had happened between them. They stood there for a moment, neither rushing to fill the silence. "You look well," she said. "You too," he replied. And he meant it. That surprised her more than anything. There was no judgment in his eyes, no quiet reminder of the past, just acknowledgement. "I wanted to say something," she said after a moment. He didn't interrupt. "I was wrong," she continued. "Not just about you, about how I saw things, about what I thought mattered." She paused, searching for the right words. "I thought money meant security. I thought status meant respect. I didn't realize respect starts with how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer." Ethan listened, the same way he always had, without rushing her, without correcting her. "I didn't understand that back then," she said, "but I do now." There was no desperation in her voice, no attempt to fix anything, just truth. Ethan nodded slowly. "I believe you," he said. And he did. That was the difference. She wasn't asking for anything anymore. Not forgiveness. Not another chance. Just acknowledgement. They stood there for another second. Not uncomfortable. Not heavy. Just complete. "I'm glad you're doing well," she said. "You too," he replied. And that was enough. No need to reopen anything. No need to rewrite the past. Because the past had already done its work. It had taught them both something real. They parted without looking back. Not because it didn't matter, but because it had already mattered enough. Across the room, people continued talking, laughing, moving forward with their lives. Just like they had. Ethan walked back into the crowd, not as someone proving a point, but as someone who had never needed to. Lena watched for a moment, then turned away as well. Different path, same lesson. Sometimes you don't lose someone because they weren't enough. You lose them because you didn't see their worth when it mattered. And by the time you do, they've already learned to live without needing to be seen by you. If you were in his place, would you forgive her or walk away for good?